This morning, let's explore empty world. This is Lama Jigme Gyatso of the Buddha Joy Meditation School, doing his Hermione imitation ostensibly. Welcome to Meditate Like a Jedi. This is the Lama you were looking for. This morning we could chant and meditate and enjoy a lesson or two, but first, if you love Star Wars and you wish to meditate as profoundly as Rey Skywalker on Ajahn Kloss under the guidance of General Leia Organa, be sure to subscribe and ring that notification bell. So I'm going to take a moment to access that which passes as my side monitor. Fabulous. Okay, that's taken care of. If at any point during this morning's live stream you have a question about meditation or philosophy or even chanting, there is no need to be shy. Simply type your question in great detail in the chat window on the right-hand side of the screen. Unless, of course, you're watching a replay, then you could type your question in the comment area below the video. This morning's lesson, The Empty World, is adapted from the Sutta Nipata, translated by V. Faust Boyle. And I hope that's the proper pronunciation. Not very good with umpas. And it's further adapted by yours truly. To the sage who sees what is good, I have come supplicatingly with a question. How is anyone to look upon the world so as not to be seen by the king of death? Let us first start off and say, this is figurative. This is not saying that Mata is real, or it's not saying it's archetypical, it's not saying it's metaphorical. We're not talking about someone living forever and never dying, but simply having a fortunate life. Let's continue. A rich, fulfilling life. Look upon the world as empty, O Mogaran, said the Buddha. Being always wakeful, having destroyed the view of oneself as really existing. So let's explore what this means here. This is best explored by a review of the basic practice of mindfulness and meditation. As we exhale, hopefully enthusiastically exhale, we can silently utter the phrase, the slogan, if you will. Notice this. That helps us to practice mindfulness vulnerably, passively, viscerally, and spontaneously. As we exhale, we can mentally recite the slogan, relaxing. So, whatever your idea of yourself is, you can perceive it as you breathe in. And whatever your idea of yourself is, as you relax into your exhalation, it could feel as if it was as non-graspable as a vast empty void. It's as simple as that. So whatever we perceive during our in-breaths, when we exhale and relax, we let go of it. The cool thing is, you don't have to force that process. It is already inherent within the parasympathetic nervous system of every healthy vertebrate life form on this planet. Let's continue. I guess you might say that, well, if it's already built in, what's the big deal? Well, because of the complexity of our brains, we often live in conflict with our natural wiring, which causes all kinds of stress. And so by aligning our intention with our the evolutionary imperative of our sympathetic nervous system and parasympathetic nervous system, we sidestep a lot of needless stress in our life. And I keep talking about stress. Stress is the word, is a more accurate translation of the polytext word dukkha, which is classically translated as suffering, but sadly the word suffering can be pretty melodramatic. But stress, we all know what stress is. If we say stress, we're not talking about stress from a high school finals point of view. We're talking about stress from an evolutionary biology point of view, where there are circumstantial stressors, physical stressors, social stressors, and mental stressors. Anything that causes your body to release cortisol is stress. Working out is stress. Sitting down is stress. Sleeping in one position without rolling over is stress. Every inhalation produces oxidants, which cause all types of health problems, including cancer. So the stress is latent in a biochemical sense, in a mechanical sense, in an endocrinological sense, everywhere, all the time. What the Buddha does is he does not teach us how to sidestep the majority of stress, but how to dance with it in a way that helps us to be as loving and as wonderful as our dogs already think we are. Let's continue. One may overcome death. The king of death will not see, the person who thus regards the world. The bee stings, the rain still falls, the pie burns, but one's life is less sucky when one has mastered the coping mechanisms that the Buddha offers us. What I'd like to do is spend approximately 15 seconds on housekeeping. If there are lessons you would like to request, or if you simply wish to support the continued availability of these classes on this platform, there is a Patreon link in the description area below the video. So I'm going to tap button 9 and take us to this morning's practice text, Easy Vajra Guru. So we see a couple sitting naked, comprised of light, quite beautiful, sitting in tantric union. And you could very well ask, what's all this then? This is an archetype of enlightenment. There are many of them. In the East, this is known as Kuntu Zangpo Yabyum, a mouthful. In the West, it is amongst those who practice tantric sex, or who are at least interested in it, this is simply known as Yab Yum. So I'm going to refer to this later on as a metaphor for physical health and for that which is sensual yet non-graspable. By the way, the symbolism of this is profound. The boy is comprised of light, the color of the infinite azure sky in a bright and beautiful cloudless morn. And the girl is comprised of light, the color of a white, fluffy, cumulus cloud. And the idea is that the fellow represents awareness, and the gal represents the object of awareness. This is very popularized in Tibet, which was big sky country before there were ever settlers in Montana. So when you live upon a beautiful plateau, or at least a vast plateau with exquisite skies, the sky creeps into many of your figures of speech. Anywho, this image will be referred to later on. Just wanted to give you a heads up. Just as an athlete might warm up before taking his turn at bat, we're going to warm up our neural pathways of love and enthusiasm by chanting refuge and bodhicitta, or bodhicitta and refuge. That constitutes enlightenment's motivation and means. May I liberate all beings by relying on the Buddha's example, instructions, and students. May I liberate all beings by relying on the Buddha's example, instructions, and students. May I liberate all beings by relying on the Buddha's example, instructions, and students. So, I'm currently transcribing and adapting and amplifying Robert Thurman's translation of Padmasambhava's natural liberation through naked vision pointing out wisdom. By the way, naked vision, when I first heard that phrase, I thought, ooh, that sounds like naughty tantra. But no, it's just a metaphor for practicing mindfulness with extreme vulnerability. Practicing mindfulness in a manner that is vulnerable, passive, visceral, and spontaneous. I just noticed Padmasambhava's name is not on this page, which is kind of lame. So I think I'll add that right here. Now, the irony, one of the great ironies about this, I think I'll add it here instead. So let's get rid of that. Okay. Is that we don't know if Padmasambhava was real or legendary. We don't know if he actually gave this discourse or if someone else just made it up and pretended it was from him. All we know is these words and their effect upon our lives as we apply them. That's all we ever know. So this morning, let's play with the introduction. Homage the three-bodied archetype of awareness and letting go, bliss and letting go, and love and letting go, wisdom's natural clarity. So, in archetype, we've already explored the archetype we play with at the beginning of this text is in American known as Yab-Yum. Well, what do we mean by three-bodied? Well, three-bodied is a delightfully figurative way of referring to the mastery of awareness and letting go, and bliss and letting go, and love and letting go. All of which we will be practicing spontaneously and effortlessly in this morning's text. So, wisdom's natural clarity. So, what is wisdom's natural clarity? When we are able to notice vulnerably, passively, viscerally, and spontaneously, effortlessly, that's natural clarity. We're able to let go of whatever we perceive in harmony with our exhalation. That's wisdom. Here is taught natural liberation through naked vision, pointing out wisdom. Sadly, in many places where capitalism and the hunger for profit and the hunger for elitism reign supreme, people do not publicly teach the Buddha's teachings. They keep them as a mystery, and they explain them cryptically to a select few, which the Buddha never taught. As the Buddha lay dying, as recorded in the Paninibbana Sutta, the Buddha said, and I translate and paraphrase, "I have taught with an outstretched arm and an open hand, keeping no secrets." Let's continue. From the profound teaching of natural liberation through contemplating the mild and fierce archetypes. So we could take this literally as referring to a rather clunky rebirth practice for auspicious rebirth. Or we could take this figuratively, the way I prefer to, and assume that we don't have to hide from our external experience, nor our internal experience. We can be honest with ourselves. We can be honest with our emotions. The full spectrum of the emotions, from the glorious to the grotesque. And that doesn't mean we give them free rein, but we are vulnerable to them. We notice them as we breathe in, and as we breathe out, we release them. We let go of them. That doesn't mean we shove them away. This means, like Pinocchio, we cut their puppet strings, whereby they would strive to control us. And I know that's an anthropomorphism. I apologize. Thus pointing out your own wisdom, contemplated well, a fortunate child. The Samaya commitment to rely upon teachers' example, instructions, and students unlocks the three gya seals. So, once again, there's a superstitious, elitist teaching that the teachings are sealed unless you keep your Samaya perfectly. And contrary to the ravings of fundamentalists, that doesn't mean we have to worship our teacher as a Buddha. It simply means we do our best to rely upon their example and their instructions and their students. And if you are going to visualize yourself as a Buddha, then visualize your teacher as a Buddha too. It would be a mistake to visualize yourself as being superior to your teacher. But that would undermine your efforts to emulate your teacher. Once again, we do not wish to be superstitious with our teacher. If our teacher is a dickhead and their advice undermines your spiritual practice and turns you into a dickhead, then by all means, love them from afar and go find a better teacher. Love them from afar is my code for leave someone's sphere of influence without hating them, without full of fear or rage, just being practical. Where this guy is on his path is not really compatible with my spiritual needs at this time, but we bear in mind the possibility that all of us can make errors in our perception, but based on where we are right now, this individual is undermining my needs. So without self-righteousness, without rancor, we can love someone from afar. We can leave someone's fear of control. And that's this morning's portion. So let's jump ahead now to the practice. I did a lot of transcribing last night. It was so much fun. It's fun to revisit a text every handful of years and see how the meaning of the text evolves as one's personal evolution evolves. Excuse me, I must hose my nose. We're going to start with the most profound practice. This is known as Zen, this is known as Chan, this is known as Dhyana, this is known as Mahasandhi, this is known as Sutra Mahamudra, this is known as Treksho Dzogchen, this is known as the slice through of great perfection. It's super simple. We practice mindfulness as we inhale by silently reciting, feeling this. We practice meditation as we exhale by mentally reciting, relaxing. Well, why do that? Every time we inhale, whether we know it or not, we are accessing our sympathetic nervous system, which is wired to support the sensory acuity that allows us to perceive. Perceive what, you might ask? Sensations, flavors, scents, sounds, sights, and the like. Did I forget one? Flavors, flavors, tastes, sounds, sense, sights, and the like, as well as emotions, intentions, thoughts, memories, and imaginings. When we perceive them vulnerably, passively, viscerally, and randomly, the only label we need ever use during mindfulness is simply the pronoun this, which is quite liberating. But what are we to do with all that which we notice? Glad you asked. During each exhalation, we inadvertently access the parasympathetic nervous system, which is wired for both physical relaxation as well as mental release. We could find ourselves releasing our habitual resistance to the presence of what we hate, the absence of what we crave, and the loss of that to which we cling. As a preliminary practice, we're going to practice the union of bliss and letting go with love and letting go. We're going to do that by silently and mentally reciting certain intentions as we inhale and relaxing as best we can as we chant this 12-syllable mantra of Padmasambhava, the alleged author of the pointing out instructions. The Buddha was fond of mentioning the 4 bases of mindfulness. In this context, they could be seen or described with the labels, the mental, the social, the physical, and the circumstantial. So I mentioned we were going to be using the archetype. So an archetype of a Buddha or a Buddhist couple, real or imagined or mythical, can help us in our love training. For the minds, the brains of vertebrates on this planet have evolved to think symbolically. Our ancient ancestors could perceive. And then over vast oceans of times, they began to recall perceptions and imagine or anticipate perceptions. That is why we say that we evolved to think symbolically. So we're going to begin by wishing that all minds of all beings now experience the joy symbolized by a real or imagined Buddha's seed syllable Hung. Then on the second breath, we're going to lovingly wish that all beings' experience of the interpersonal be as peaceful as a real or imagined mantra. On the third breath, we're going to wish that all bodies of all beings, real or imagined, now enjoy the health as depicted by an archetype of enlightenment. And on the fourth breath, we're going to lovingly wish that all circumstances now enjoy the safety and good fortune symbolized by by the Buddha's paradise or Pure Land or Vati described in tantric mythology. It's not our job to decide whether these metaphors pertain to something real or something imagined. It's our job just to simply and enthusiastically wish others well. And here's the cool thing. We don't have to visualize. We don't have to emote. We don't have to believe. If all we do is silently and mentally recite these words in harmony with our inhalation and our exhalation and our relaxation, we will make progress on the path, which is a delight. So after performing this for 4 breaths, we're going to rest in the non-graspable nature of awareness as we silently and mentally recite, feeling this relaxing in harmony with the next 12 to 16 breaths. So it's 27 minutes after the hour. Let's meditate. Om Mahum Benza Guru Me Mazeri Hum. 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 We're going to do something very similar now. We're going to work, instead of love, we're going to work with the wisdom of letting go. So we're going during the first inhalation, we're going to ask, how not seen yet void like Pure Land. What does that mean? Voidness is a metaphor for non-graspability. Whatever we notice during the inhalation, once we start relaxing the exhalation, it could feel as if it was as non-graspable as a vast empty void, like the illusion of the infinite azure sky on a bright and beautiful cloudless morn. So what we're saying is we're exploring Nagarjuna's 2 truths, that even though our circumstances are visible, and when we inhale, once we exhale, they could feel as if they were as non-graspable as a mythical paradise comprised only of light. Now, some people want to believe, and I'm not going to tell people what to believe. Personally, I found greater freedom in not grasping at beliefs. Ideas come and ideas go, and we let them do their deal. So we're going to work with similes. One of my life's work has been reverse engineering Tantra from the metaphoric to from metaphors into similes. So during the second breath, we explore how it is that although we can feel bodies as we breathe in, as we exhale, they could feel as if they were as non-graspable as a mythical Buddha couple comprised only of light. As we breathe in, we explore how it is that although speech, which is the speech, how communication, both verbal and nonverbal, serves as the bedrock of our relationships, vocational, personal, platonic, and intimate. And we can perceive that communication as we breathe in. As we breathe out, it could feel, and we relax, it could feel as if it was as non-graspable as a mantra comprised only of light. During our fourth breath, we consider as we breathe in how that as we exhale, we can clearly perceive minds, perceptions, emotions, intentions, thoughts, memories, and imaginings. And yet, as we relax, they could feel as if they were as non-graspable as a seed syllable comprised only of light. So we're using the same 4 elements of iconography, but this time as similes of the wisdom of letting go. Again, during each exhalation, we're going to relax as best we can while chanting the 12-syllable mantra. And then we're going to rest in the non-graspable nature of awareness. Welcome to the easy path of enlightenment. I'm reminded of the statements attributed to Einstein. Any educated idiot can make things more complicated, more difficult, and more violent. But it takes a lot of courage and a little bit of wisdom to move in the genius to move in the opposite direction. Let's jump in. Om Mahum Benzo Guru Me Mazeri Hum 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 It has been said that relaxing into the non-graspable nature of awareness is the key to transcending samsara's primal duality of dread and desire. We are now going to figuratively contemplate impermanence and interdependent. We're going to use impermanence as a metaphor. We're going to use melting as a metaphor of impermanence and absorption as a metaphor of interdependence, to act as contemplative antidotes to confusion's duality of competitiveness and clinging. And so we're playing with the idea. And this is, by the way, this is not literal. This is not rewriting physics. It's purely allegorical. It's purely figurative. But we're going to explore impermanence as we pretend that all circumstances, all environments of all universes, real or imagined, are now melting in a rainbow light. And now we're going to contemplate interdependence by pretending they're absorbing into our bodies. We then do the same thing with all bodies of all beings everywhere, temporarily melting and then interdependently dissolving into our communication. The communication of all beings, real or imagined, impermanently melting, and then interdependently absorbing into our mind. The minds of all beings everywhere, impermanently melting, and then interdependently dissolving into great emptiness. This does not have to be visualized. This doesn't have to be believed. We do not need to emote. We simply play with these words in harmony with our breathing and our relaxing. We will make progress on the path ridiculously easily. Om Ahum Menzaguru Memaziri Hung, Om Ahum Menzaguru Memaziri Hung, Om Ahum Menzaguru Memaziri Hung, Om Ahum Menzaguru Memaziri Hung. There are some who call this the yoga of inconceivability. I call it pretty cool. Om Ahum Menzaguru Memaziri Hung, Om Ahum Menzaguru Memaziri Hung, Om Ahum Menzaguru Memaziri Hung, Om Ahum Menzaguru Memaziri Hung. Om Ahum Menzaguru Memaziri Hung, Om Ahum Menzaguru Memaziri Hung, Om Ahum Menzaguru Memaziri Hung, Om Ahum Menzaguru Memaziri Hung. Om Ahum Menzaguru Memaziri Hung, Om Ahum Menzaguru Memaziri Hung, Om Ahum Menzaguru Memaziri Hung, Om Ahum Menzaguru Memaziri Hung. We're now going to play with a request. Lama, come to this crown. We could visualize this may represent our teacher of flesh, blood, and bones. This may represent a Buddhist author whose writings speak to us. This may represent the historical Buddha. This may represent the Yabyum, whose painting we saw at the beginning of the practice text. This could represent, Lama could represent just the idea of the teachings themselves. By inviting them to come to the crown of this head, we are shifting our energy from our heart to our crown, which is just another way of training in bliss and letting go. The 3 previous sets of 4 exercises were heart-centered. This is crown-centered. Because of balance, it can be useful. And of course, we are exchanging the word feeling. We're replacing it with the word watching. You don't have to believe, you don't have to visualize. If all you do is silently and mentally recite these words in harmony with your breathing and you're relaxing, you will make progress on the path. Om Ahum Benzaguru Memazeri Hum, Om Ahum Benzaguru Memazeri Hum, Om Ahum Benzaguru Memazeri Hum, Om Ahum Benzaguru Memazeri Hum. Om Ahum Benzaguru Memazeri Hum, Om Ahum Benzaguru Memazeri Hum, Om Ahum Benzaguru Memazeri Hum, Om Ahum Benzaguru Memazeri Hum. Om Ahum Benzaguru Memazeri Hum, Om Ahum Benzaguru Memazeri Hum, Om Ahum Benzaguru Memazeri Hum, Om Ahum Benzaguru Memazeri Hum. Let's repeat the cycle a second time, beginning with love and letting go. Or I should say, beginning with love. Om Ahum Benzaguru Memazeri Hum, Om Ahum Benzaguru Memazeri Hum, Om Ahum Benzaguru Memazeri Hum, Om Ahum Benzaguru Memazeri Hum. Om Ahum Benzaguru Memazeri Hum, Om Ahum Benzaguru Memazeri Hum, Om Ahum Benzaguru Memazeri Hum, Om Ahum Benzaguru Memazeri Hum. Om Ahum Benzaguru Memazeri Hum, Om Ahum Benzaguru Memazeri Hum, Om Ahum Benzaguru Memazeri Hum, Om Ahum Benzaguru Memazeri Hum. Om Ahum Benzaguru Me Mazeri 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 Hum. Let us bring the 4 bases of mindfulness into the path of letting go. Om Ahum Benzaguru Me Mazeri Hum. 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 let's bring impermanence and interdependence into the path of the 4 bases of mindfulness. Om Ahum Benzaguru Me Mazeri Hum 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 Let's bring love into the path of the 4 bases of mindfulness. Om benzu guru me mazeri hum, Om benzu guru me mazeri hum, Om benzu guru me mazeri hum, Om benzu guru me mazeri hum. Om benzu guru me mazeri hum, Om benzu guru me mazeri hum, Om benzu guru me mazeri hum, Om benzu guru me mazeri hum. Om benzu guru me mazeri hum, Om benzu guru me mazeri hum, Om benzu guru me mazeri hum, Om benzu guru me mazeri hum. Om benzu guru me mazeri hum, Om benzu guru me mazeri hum, Om benzu guru me mazeri hum, Om benzu guru me mazeri hum. Let us bring the 4 bases of mindfulness into the path of letting go. Om benzu guru me mazeri hum, Om benzu guru me mazeri hum, Om benzu guru me mazeri hum, Om benzu guru me mazeri hum. Since we are wishing and letting go of all circumstances, bodies, speech and minds, we are giving tantric empowerments to all beings everywhere, thus throwing a brick through the plate glass window of elitism. Om benzu guru me mazeri hum, Om benzu guru me mazeri hum, Om benzu guru me mazeri hum, Om benzu guru me mazeri hum. Om benzu guru me mazeri hum, Om benzu guru me mazeri hum, Om benzu guru me mazeri hum, Om benzu guru me mazeri hum. Om benzu guru me mazeri hum, Om benzu guru me mazeri hum, Om benzu guru me mazeri hum, Om benzu guru me mazeri hum. Om Ahum 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 Guru Me Mazeri Hum. Om Ahum. Oopsie. Oh, I got ahead of myself. Om Ahum Guru Me Mazeri Hum. 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 Let's bring the 4 bases of mindfulness into the path of wishing love. Omma hung benzu guru me mazeri hung, omma hung benzu guru me mazeri hung, omma hung benzu guru me mazeri hung, omma hung benzu guru me mazeri hung. Omma hung benzu guru me mazeri hung, omma hung benzu guru me mazeri hung, omma hung benzu guru me mazeri hung, omma hung benzu guru me mazeri hung. Omma hung benzu guru me mazeri hung, omma hung benzu guru me mazeri hung, omma hung benzu guru me mazeri hung, omma hung benzu guru me mazeri hung. Omma hung benzu guru me mazeri hung, omma hung benzu guru me mazeri hung, omma hung benzu guru me mazeri hung, omma hung benzu guru me mazeri hung. Let us bring the 4 bases of mindfulness into the path of letting go. Omma hung benzu guru me mazeri hung, 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 omma hung benzu guru me mazeri hung. Omma hung benzu guru me mazeri hung, omma hung benzu guru me mazeri hung, omma hung benzu guru me mazeri hung, omma hung benzu guru me mazeri hung. Omma hung benzu guru me mazeri hung, omma hung benzu guru me mazeri hung, omma hung benzu guru me mazeri hung, omma hung benzu guru me mazeri hung. Omma hung benzu guru me mazeri hung, omma hung benzu guru me mazeri hung, omma hung benzu guru me mazeri hung, omma hung benzu guru me mazeri hung. Let's bring impermanence and interdependence into the 4 bases of mindfulness. Om Aum Benzaguru Me Maseri Hum, Om Aum Benzaguru Me Maseri Hum, Om Aum Benzaguru Me Maseri Hum, Om Aum Benzaguru Me Maseri Hum. Om Aum Benzaguru Me Maseri Hum, Om Aum Benzaguru Me Maseri Hum, Om Aum Benzaguru Me Maseri Hum, Om Aum Benzaguru Me Maseri Hum. Om Aum Benzaguru Me Maseri Hum, Om Aum Benzaguru Me Maseri Hum, Om Aum Benzaguru Me Maseri Hum, Om Aum Benzaguru Me Maseri Hum. Om Aum Benzaguru Me Maseri Hum, Om Aum Benzaguru Me Maseri Hum, Om Aum Benzaguru Me Maseri Hum, Om Aum Benzaguru Me Maseri Hum. Om Aum Benzaguru Me Maseri Hum, Om Aum Benzaguru Me Maseri Hum, Om Aum Benzaguru Me Maseri Hum, Om Aum Benzaguru Me Maseri Hum. Om Aum Benzaguru Me Maseri Hum, Om Aum Benzaguru Me Maseri Hum, Om Aum Benzaguru Me Maseri Hum, Om Aum Benzaguru Me Maseri Hum. Om Aum Benzaguru Me Maseri Hum, Om Aum Benzaguru Me Maseri Hum, Om Aum Benzaguru Me Maseri Hum, Om Aum Benzaguru Me Maseri Hum. Om Aum Benzaguru Me Maseri Hum, Om Aum Benzaguru Me Maseri Hum, Om Aum Benzaguru Me Maseri Hum, Om Aum Benzaguru Me Maseri Hum. Let us seal our practice with 2 chants, beginning with the ethics of kindness. May all beings practice of kind communication, conduct, and calmness with spontaneous and uncontrived. And now the 4 immeasurables. May everyone be free from stress, may everyone be happy, may no one be separated from the happiness. May everyone have balance from the tyranny of hating, craving, and clinging freed. If you feel I have earned it, type something in the chat window, give this live stream a thumbs up, and share it on social media. In approximately 10.5 hours, we could explore controlling tendencies, intuition, and meditation, as well as chant and meditate some more. Until then, may you and yours be happy and healthy. And if you are as geeky as me, this is the way.